Hello there, it's Ashley. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am so glad that you are here visiting. I created this channel in honor of my dad, and he and I had talked for years and years when my mom and I were taking care of him when he was suffering from Parkinson's disease and leukemia. We wanted to do a YouTube channel someday. We wanted to encourage people and uplift them and just let them know that they're loved, that everyone is. And my dad didn't want to be on camera because of the condition he was in with Parkinson's, and totally understood that. So I told him someday I would start a channel, and here it is. So my dad and I, we wanted to let people know that no matter how bad life gets, that they can get through it, that they can be happy again, that it is possible. So I hope whenever you're here that I can empower and encourage you to get up every time that you get knocked down, and to live your life with joy and hope for the future, because you can have a happy life. And if you have trouble finding hope, I have started a series, I don't know what really to call it, on this channel called Hope for Today. And that was birthed through my need for hope every day, because both my parents have passed, and over the course of 14 years I took care of them. And I still have a lot of days where it takes everything I've got just to get up, get out of bed, and get through the day. And so I had begun trying to find hope for myself, and I thought, well, maybe this would help somebody else. I don't know. So anyway, there are some videos in in this channel that might help you. So I hope so. But anyway, I want you all to know that you are always welcome here, no matter who you are, where you're from, what you believe or don't believe, or what you look like. I love you, and I'm so glad that you're here, and I want you to have happiness and joy in your life. In this video, I want to talk about the true power and effect of unconditional love. There are going to be two parts to this video. The first is going to be about my dad and how he taught me about that power, and he was such a great example to me of it. The second part will be about how the God that I believe in and worship, and Jesus too, loves people unconditionally. So if you don't want to stay for the second half, I totally understand, but I really hope that you will. Whether you watch till the end or turn this off halfway, know that I love you all, no matter who you are, or where you're from, what you believe or don't believe, or what you look like. And I know that if my dad was still here, he would say that he loves you all too. My dad taught me that there was tremendous power in unconditional love, that it's something that people should love each other without boundaries. That he taught me that real true love for your friends, for your neighbors, for your coworkers, and people who exist in this world that you never even meet is something that we should have. We should give everyone unconditional love and not judge anyone. Dad taught me also that all humans deserve love simply because they are human. Dad believed in God and was a Christian, and I was raised in church, and I'm a Christian also. My dad, he didn't hear I love you growing up, so he said it to everybody. He was raised in a horribly abusive household, violence, controlled by fear, and he told me that terrible childhood birthed his love for people and his love for God, as weird as that sounds. Dad said that people need to hear that they are truly unconditionally loved, that love is powerful and it can change someone's life. It can change nations and the world. And, he was such a great example to me of what he taught me. Growing up, Dad said that as a Christian, our job was not to judge people, but to love them. That's it. Just love them. He was raised in church. He said that God was shoved down his throat in that denomination he was in, and that love for God was had by fear of God, not respect kind of fear, but fear. And he just really didn't like that at all. He said that, that's not how it should be. He said, people were threatened with going to hell and judgment, even by other people who were church members if they didn't love God. And, he said his grandmother was very instrumental in his life by showing him a loving God who was not punishing him, who didn't hate him, who didn't want him to be afraid of him. Because Dad never understood why God would allow him to grow up in such a horrendous household. And, I don't think that anyone is ever going to have a sufficient answer to why people are allowed to suffer. Dad knew that if there was a God that loved him, then the life he had as a child couldn't be the way that it was supposed to be his whole life. it just wasn't supposed to be like that. He told my mom when they knew they were going to have me, he had no idea how to be a father, but he knew how not to be one. So he was going to do the exact opposite of everything, everything how he was raised. He did a good job, and it was the best that I could ever ask for. He loved me unconditionally, and he even loved his own father unconditionally. I remember when my grandfather was sick, he was near death, and how shocked my mom and I were when my dad and my uncle went to take care of him. Dad was there for his father until the moment he died, and he told me that he had forgiven him for what he had done to him and to his brothers and to his mother, and he even asked me to come and forgive my grandfather before he died. I couldn't believe that he would ask me to do that. He didn't make any excuses for my grandfather for his actions. He just said that I needed to forgive him as he had done, because he knew that, I was very angry with my grandfather, for the abuse he inflicted my dad and my grandmother and my uncle. So, out of respect and love for my dad, I did. I sat on the patio with my grandfather one day as he was near death. I held his hand, and, it wasn't some big scene or big drama with tears or anything. It just was what it was. We watched the sunset, and, we sat in quiet for a while, and that was it, And it was very strange growing up sometimes, because my grandfather always professed his love for God, and that made his behavior really confusing. My dad said sometimes, we'll just never know why things happen the way they do, and we have to forgive. He said that forgiving isn't for that person, it's for us. He said it was for himself to forgive his father so that he could not hate him anymore, and he could, he didn't want to prevent him from going to heaven. I mean, seriously, my dad, he didn't want his unforgiveness and anger and hatred towards his father to keep him from going to heaven. So he forgave him, and that's why he wanted me to do it too. I gotta say, I mean, that is unconditional love. That is the power of unconditional love. That was just amazing. Dad loved God enough to be there in my grandfather's final weeks and to forgive him and to love him unconditionally, not because he was his father, but because he was a human being. In the Bible it says in Leviticus, not to have a grudge, don't have unforgiveness. So that's what my dad did. He forgave. Forgiveness, I know it was a process for him. It wasn't just some wonderful moment that happened. It took his whole life. I talked to my previous video about forgiveness and how my dad taught me how to do that. So I'll link that at the end of the video. Unconditional love, it totally changed my dad's life. And, he chose to not continue the cycle of abuse. And I always think, what if he hadn't done that? What if he'd done that to me? What would my life be like, Because, he told me the abuse made him feel like something was intrinsically wrong with him. His mind, he believed logically what the Bible said, that he was made in God's image, so there's nothing wrong with him. But in his heart, he couldn't understand what caused his father to seemingly hate him and tell him every day he was worthless, that he had no value, that he would never amount to anything. Dad said that my mom's unconditional love for him also changed him. It made a huge difference in his life. He said he told her about all the abuse, and he was still acting out, drinking and fighting when my parents met when they were in college. But that didn't matter to my mom. She saw the true person that he was, and she loved him without limits, without boundaries, without conditions. She told me years ago that my dad never acted bad towards her when that happened, and that she just let him do what he needed to do to move on. And she was there through the mess. My parents were married for 54 years when my dad died. And my mom said that, they did have arguments and whatnot through the years. And during those arguments and those times, they may not have liked each other, but they still loved each other. And that, unconditional love wasn't allowing somebody to treat you like a doormat. It was being there for somebody in bad times, like when my dad was super sick. And, my mom never talked about leaving him, no matter how bad the Parkinson's got or the leukemia. And I asked her why. And, we knew people who had walked out on their spouses in their darkest hours. And, my mom said, when she married my dad, that it was for times like these. Easy times are easy to stay for. This was truly unconditionally loving someone, being there, watching them deteriorate, knowing they will never get better, but being there, never wavering, standing by them, being somebody they can count on. I really hope that I can find that someday. I really do. My dad also taught me that we are all loved unconditionally by God and by Jesus, and that nothing we ever do or don't do will change that. I mean, absolutely, positively nothing. Dad said that, even people who hate God or don't believe in God are still loved by God. The Bible says in Genesis 1:27-28 that all humans were created in God's image, and that God gave those who he believed in commandments or orders, to love. And in John 13:34, Jesus said, love one another just as I have loved you. He unconditionally loved us, so that's how we're supposed to love each other. Matthew 37-39 says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. So love yourself unconditionally, and then love others unconditionally. My dad always said you can't give away what you don't have. So I know loving yourself is hard. I know being a caregiver and watching people suffer and die that you love, it's hard to love yourself after that, because you feel like a failure, like you've done something or you didn't do something they needed, and it's hard to unconditionally love anybody when you don't have that for yourself. So, yeah. There is this absolutely beautiful YouTube video that's related to this that Mr. Penn Jillette of Penn and Teller made, which talks about if you truly believe in something like heaven and you believe that there's something out there that can make someone's life better, even after they die, to tell them, to not worry about being socially awkward, that if you love people, tell them. That video had me in tears. It was so incredible. And I'm truly grateful to him for making and posting that. So thank you, Mr. Jillette, for it. So therefore, I'm telling you, whoever you are and wherever you are, I believe that the God I serve and worship, and that his son Jesus loves you too, no matter whether you're an atheist or whether you hate God, which I did for a long time. I truly believe that they both love you unconditionally, no matter what. And it's not just because the Bible says it. I believe it from my own experience, feeling abandoned by God, watching my parents suffer, and just dealing with all the horrible things in life, You are loved. You are, whether you believe it or not. You are. When Jesus came to the earth, it was to redeem all humans, to save everyone. He voluntarily took on a tremendous amount of pain and suffering to show humans how tremendous his love was for us. He gave his life for us, for you, whether you believe it or not. Someone loves you that much to do that, and you don't have to earn that. You don't have to earn God's love or Jesus's love. They love you simply because you were created in God's image. That's it. That's the reason. I hope that someday you will realize and accept that you are unconditionally loved. And I hope that you will I hope that you will love other people the same way. My dad said that you can never say I love you enough. It's powerful. Love is powerful. It can change the world. It can change everything. It can change nations. It can change someone's day and make it better. So I want you all to know that no matter who you are or where you're from, what you believe or don't believe, or what you look like, that I love you. And I know that my dad loves you too. And I want you to stop feeling bad about yourself. If you do, I want you to stop feeling guilty. If you do, I work on that every day myself. I really do hope that you will do that. And yeah. As my favorite quote reads by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, what is my life if I am no longer useful to others? I really hope that I have been useful today. I hope that you will find a way to love yourself. I hope that you will know how amazing and how wonderful you are, because you are a human being. Regardless of what society says about you, regardless of what the people you love or used to love or felt like they loved you who don't seem to anymore, no matter what has happened or not happened, you are loved. You are amazing. I love you. My dad loves you. I know, because he loved everybody. And I know that God and Jesus love you. You were made in God's image. Genesis 1:27-28, if I'm remembering that right. He does. He does. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for visiting, and I will see you again soon.